When you are trying to bring yourself up out of a hole, whether you suffer from depression or some form of anxiety, or you're just having a down time, you're just in a funk, something is eating away at you. Um, it's tough to bring yourself up out of that. I know I've been there. We've all, everybody fights some kind of battle at some point in their own head. And you have to find an outlet. And I know that art is an outlet for a lot of people. I've been there. I know the shadow. I know where those dark colors come from. I know why that quote resonates and why you included it in the piece of art that you created. Um, I know that fast pace of just slamming colors down because you just have to just get it out. I know that. And I know how it is with words too. I know your handwriting changes when you are angry, when you are upset, when you're happy. Supposedly, when you're in a good mood, you tend to write upward, and when you're in a bad mood, you tend to write down. Um, and all of those things, art and writing, have helped me a ton. When I was in high school and college, I would fill 8 to 10 pages front to back when I was in when I was in a bad place, when I was in a dark place in my life. It would be nothing for me to just write 10 pages. And at that time, I was just a kid and I was just venting. And it was one of the most tumultuous times in my life. I dealt with a lot in school. I dealt with a lot at home. I worked, I dealt with things for my job. And, my personal life, my professional life, everything was, I had to figure a lot of things out on my own. And that was my outlet for that process in my life. So then it was just writing down bad feelings. It was just getting over, just getting it out, which helps so much. It is so cleansing. Even if you do the Barb Owen tactic where you paint that page over, you glue something on top of it, you get rid of the negativity out of your life, go right ahead. Do that. If you had a bad day yesterday, do that if it puts you in a better place today. Do it. But learn from what your darkness represents. Learn from what it was that upset you. The other night, the last thing I wanted to do was write. I had a day, my whole day, it started at 4 o'clock in the morning with a screaming child, and she screamed until almost sun up, which I then had to be awake so that I could get to a dentist appointment where the dentist only filled my tooth halfway, so I have a big hole. When I flossed that night, it pulled part of the filling out beside, so if I chew on something hard and it jams up in there, it sends a pain all the way up my face. We went to pick up a prescription at a special pharmacy that is an hour away, and only half of the prescription was ready because the doctor changed the order of the prescription. So this week we have to go back again to get the rest of the prescription. And it went on from there. It was raining. It was cold. It was just a bad day. The one word, both kids were in a horrible mood all day. the one word for that day in my life is discouragement. That was the only word. So I took my journal out, which I didn't want to write. I was like, put this day to bed. I took my journal out and I wrote at the top of the page, discouragement. That is the word of today. And I wrote about it. I wrote about the day. I wrote about where my head was. I wrote about why I was where, all the things that happened. And in the midst of all of it, and while I was finishing up, and I'm thinking to myself, man, what a crap day. A little light resonated inside of me, and I said, but I got my herb planter built. Brian and I built the herb planter, and we had a nice fire. We started the fire in the fireplace rather early, and we all got to sit down and enjoy the fireplace for, a couple of hours before everybody had to go to bed. And we spent a nice, quiet 2 or 3 hours together. We had a nice dinner that night, and it was delicious, and it was filling, and it just hit the spot. It was just a good meal that hit the spot. I took what was bad that day, and I found the little light, the tiny little light, that then blew up into this super bright bulb in my life on this horrible day. And I did that. I got to that point because my brain was empty from the loud noise. My brain was empty from the yelling and the crying and the anger and the sadness, and everybody's down each other's throats, and the ugly of that day was gone. So all of a sudden something came over me to bring about happier thoughts. And I think that using a journal as a form of therapy and getting out all of those negative feelings, getting them all out at once, is really what helps to bring the light in. And even if you pay a therapist, which if you go to a therapist, that is great. More power to you. I don't have an easy time talking to people, so I don't go. But if you do, and if that's what works for you, a lot of them will tell you to keep a journal, to write. When you feel X, Y, and Z, write down why and write down what triggered it. And that's true, absolutely. I write down my triggers, and sometimes I don't have a trigger. Sometimes I just go from happy to mad in a second, and it's hard. And it's hard because I'm battling health issues that cause that. It's hard because there's an imbalance. There's a chemical problem, and I try so hard not to be on medication, and I don't self-medicate. So I don't, I'm not on anything right now. And I fight every day. I fight the darkness every single day inside of me. I fight that cloud that lingers over my head. But one of the tools I keep in my tool bag is that journal, is those words, is that art. Sometimes that shadow that is lurking in the background of some ridiculous thing I just threw together, that shadow is what needed to come out. And then once it does, I can bring myself to a higher place. I can bring myself to a happier place. I can find a little tiny light in that shadow. And that's really all that matters. I have found that when I have something or some things that are really stressful or really eating at me, and a lot of it, believe it or not, has to do with the world and the news and other people's emotions, I tend to absorb it. And it's really trying, and it's really, demotivating, if that's even a word. But if I can take the some things and break them down, right? If I have 5 things that are really stressing me out, and I can break them down, but then I can write out what's good about them, that helps me too. I don't do that all the time. Sometimes I have to just throw it out. Sometimes I have to just throw this disgusting feeling in my brain out and before I can, go further. But sometimes I can break it down. And I can break it down into teeny tiny little pieces. And then as I get past all the ugly, I can finally start to find the good. For instance, I'm trying to think of an example that I had done that. My father dying. It's been 8.5 years. It's been 9 years since he was diagnosed with cancer. And that was the most difficult time of my life. That year was the most difficult time, and the feelings and the uncertainty and the fear and the hope. The hope was tough. The sadness and watching him was tough. When he died, it took me about 5 or 6 years to really find the light in it. The whole thing was just kind of dark. And even though in the back of my head, like in this logical part of my brain, I said, but Malia, you're strong and you came out stronger, and things are never going to be the same, but you're doing good, and you're doing good because I couldn't see that part until a few years ago when I finally wrote it out. And I said to myself, well, without him, right, I'm learning how to do a lot of things on my own that I wouldn't, things with my vehicles or things around my house. I'm figuring that stuff out. And I catch myself picking up a lot of his traits. I catch myself laughing like him. I catch myself, patient, saying, what would my dad do? How would my dad feel? How would he handle this situation? Because he was dealt some crappy hands too. How would he handle this situation? So I find that I'm picking up his qualities, and I'm consciously making an effort to own the things he was good at. I'm consciously making an effort to do things the way I feel like he would, the way I feel like he would want to. The things that I know he knew about life, and the things I know he was good at. So that's a positive trait. That's a positive thing to come of that. I am much more patient than I was then. And his illness really brought about the patience aspect. When somebody is really sick, when somebody is dying, it is so easy to want answers, and then when you get them, they're not good enough. And then when you get more answers, it's not what you wanted to hear, so you're angry. You're angrier, and you want different answers. And you wait for the best possible answer that's not coming. You wait for that good report that's not happening. My dad went to one of the greatest cancer facilities in the world, and they still couldn't even tell him what type of cancer he was diagnosed with. He went to Dana-Farber Institute in Boston, Massachusetts, and they could not tell him what type of cancer he had. They wanted to treat him for breast cancer because they found a gene in his testing that is common in women who have breast cancer. They don't even know if it was a gene that causes it. It's just a gene that was common among breast cancer patients. They had no idea. So they treated him for breast cancer, then they changed it to pancreatic cancer. And it was a big mess. And I never got the answer I wanted. I never got the answer I was looking for. He could have gone to 5,000 institutes, and until somebody said to me, oh, he's going to make it through this and he's going to be just fine, nobody was giving me the answer I needed or that I wanted to hear. But I grew from that, and when someone dies, you grow from it. You don't think you do. You don't see it until you stop and look. And one thing about keeping a journal is it helps you to stop and look. A journal will stop you in your tracks and say, oh my God, I can't believe I'm X, Y, and Z. I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm behaving like this. I can't believe, I didn't see this before, but it will. I don't think there is any psychiatrist or therapist or counselor or shaman who can guide you and who can really heal you like letting it out on paper. I don't think that you will find what you're looking for in somebody who's trained to just tell you the scientific reason why you're feeling how you're feeling based on research and studies. But it doesn't happen overnight. You have to write. You have to let it out. You have to write every single day. You have to write no matter what your mood. You have to go and go and go before, sometimes a while before you can get an answer. I wrote, all the time. There was a long period of time I didn't write. Just when my dad died, my desire to write just gone, and I didn't really pick up writing again until a few years ago. Except for when, the few times that I wrote in between there. But I'm back onto it, and the self-realizations and the things I need to get over are really starting to come back to me. They're really starting to find their way, and it's bringing a light. It is, and it's helping. So I'm telling you right now, whether your help is art, do it every single day. Or your help is writing, do it every single day. Or if you collage through your happiness and sadness and anger and sorrow, do it every single day. Every day. Every day. If you meditate and then write about it. Meditate and then record it. Record your dreams. You want to find the root to your cloud, that dark cloud. You want to bring yourself up out of the hole that you're in. You have to be faithful in trying to find a resolution. And you have to just let it all go. You have to let it all go out on that paper. You have to let it go. So those are the words that I have for you today. And I'm sorry, I took up like 20 minutes of your time just babbling about this stuff while choking. But you got to do it. And when you do, let me know. I want to know how it helps you. Write for 30 days straight. 30 days. Start today. Start on April 1st, next week. 30 days. And let me know. I want to know what effect it's had on your life. I love you all. Ta-ta for now.